Hello, Parkway Manor. Welcome back to Tuesday, April 14th, How to Eat Fried Worms by Thomas Rockwell. Last time we read about Alan and Joe coming up with some type of plan to trick Billy. Let me go back to chapter 9. It was very short. Chapter 9 was called The Plotters. Geez, you think it'll work? Alan said to Joe. Suppose it doesn't. He didn't seem to pay too much attention today. Don't worry, said Joe. We got him thinking. It takes time. I got it all doped out. Trust me. Moving on to chapter 10, the fourth worm. Billy ate steadily, grimacing, rubbing his nose, spreading on more horseradish sauce. Tom bent over him, hissing in his ear. Fish, 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 fish. Billy paused, watching Alan and Joe whispering by the door. He swished the last bite around and round in the ketchup and mustard. All of a sudden he said, "That's not fair. They can't act like that anymore. Every time I swallow, they lean forward as if they expect me to keel over and die or something. And then when I don't, they look surprised, shrug their shoulders, and they nudge each other." "Come on," said Joe. "Cut it out. We can watch you. We're just standing over here by the window watching you." "No, you're not," said Billy. "You're whispering and acting as if you expected something to happen every time I swallow." "It's nothing," said Joe. "Forget it. Look, we'll turn around and look out the window while you swallow." "What do you mean it's nothing?" said Billy. "What's nothing?" "Oh, come on," said Alan. "It's just something Joe's father told him the other night. Don't worry about it. It's nothing." "What? What?" "It'll just worry you," said Alan. "It's crazy. It's nothing. Just forget we said anything." Billy tore the napkin away from his throat. "Tell me." "It's nothing," said Joe. "You know how my father is. He's always yelling about something." "Tell me or the bet's off." "Well, look, it's nothing. But the night before last, I was telling Janie about you eating the worms, and my father was on the porch and overheard us talking. So he threw down his newspaper and says, 'Joseph?' So I say, 'Yes, Pa?' And he says, 'Have you eaten a worm, Joseph?' And then he grabbed my shoulders and shook me till my hands danced at the end of my arms like a puppet. 'It's for your own good,' he says. So I started out, 'It's not going to do me any good if I shake to pieces, is it?' Janie was wailing. My mother was chewing her apron in the doorway. 'Alfred,' she cries, 'what's the boy done? Has he hauled down the American flag at school and eaten it again? Has he—' 'What's your point?' said Billy. 'Get to the point. What does all of this have to do with me?' 'Okay, I'm getting to it,' said Joe. 'But I wanted to show you how important this was. You know, my father nearly killing me and all.' He sneezed, and then Alan began to sneeze, and finally had to hobble off into one of the horse stalls, hugging his stomach to recover. 'Anyway,' said Joe, wiping his nose again, 'so my father told my mother he thought I had eaten a worm.' 'A what?' says my mother, dropping her apron and clutching the sides of her head. 'A worm,' says my father, nodding solemnly. So my mother fainted, collapsed, all helter-skelter, right there in the doorway, and lay still, her tongue lolling out of her mouth, her red hair spread out beautifully over the doorsill. "Will you cut it out?" Billy yelled. "Who cares about your mother? What does it have to do with me?" "I think he's lying," said Tom. "Who ever heard of someone's mother fainting and her tongue hanging out?" "All right," yelled Joe apologetically, stamping all around. "All right, now I won't tell. You can die, Billy Forrester, and you'll have to carry him home," Tom growled, "all by yourself. Nobody says to me, 'Who cares about your mother?'" "All right, I'm going, Alan," he yelled. "They're insulting my mother. I'm going." "Don't," said Alan, running out of the horse stall and grabbing Joe. "Don't. You gotta tell him. Even your mother'd say so. Mine too, no matter what he said. Ain't it a matter of life and death?" "I won't," said Joe, starting towards the door. Alan pulled him back. "You got to. How long have we known poor Bill? 6, 7 years? For old time's sake, Joe, because we were all once in kindergarten together. Think of the agony he'll face. Joe, the pain, and the blood and the gore. Billy was on his knees by the orange crate, wringing his hands, not daring to interfere. But when Joe glanced sullenly back at him, he whispered, "Please, Joe, for old time's sake." "Well, will you apologize for insulting my mother?" "I do," said Billy. "I apologize." So Alan and Joe began to sneeze again, and this time had to bend over and put their heads between their legs to recover. Tom, who had been watching them suspiciously, trying to make out what was going on, started to say something. "Be quiet," hissed Billy fiercely. "You keep out of this." So Joe went on with the story, how his mother had been carried upstairs to her room, how the doctor had come shaking his head, how his aunt had sobbed, pulling down all the shades in their house, how that morning his mother had finally come downstairs for the first time leaning on his aunt's arm, pale and sorrowful, how... "Yes," said Tom, "sure. So why? What does eating worms do to you? Tell us, please." "Nobody will tell me," said Joe. "It's been 3 days, and nobody'll say. It's just like the time my cousin Lucy got caught in the back seat of her father's Chevrolet. Nobody'll tell me why they were so mad she was in the car." "Nuts," said Tom. "Oh, yeah," said Joe. But then he and Alan had another sneezing fit, sprawling helplessly against each other. "Look at them," said Tom to Billy. "They're not sneezing. They're trying to cover up their laughing. Come on, eat the last piece and let's get out of here." "You really think so?" said Billy doubtfully. The sneezing did look an awful lot like giggling. "Sure, look at them. They're lying to us." Tom gave Alan and Joe a shove. They collapsed in a heap, sneezing uncontrollably. Billy watched them. Yeah, sure. They weren't sneezing. They were laughing. Weren't they? "It's hay fever," gasped Alan. "Hay fever. I have allergies." "Ah, you never had hay fever before," said Tom. "How about yesterday or the day before? Come on, Billy, open up. Let's finish this worm." So Billy, kind of half believing Tom and half not, glancing doubtfully at Alan and Joe, allowed Tom to poke the last bite of worm into his mouth and lead him out of the barn. Alan and Joe sat up. Alan said, "Oh, it didn't work." Joe began to brush the chafe out of his hair. "You wait. He wasn't sure. He's thinking about it." Tom was, but he's not the one eating the worms. "You wait. Billy's worried." He was before. That's why he said he felt like he was going to throw up. But now he's really worried. Suppose I wasn't lying. Did you see his face when I said my father shook me? I thought his eyes would bug right out of his head. Alan laughed. "Oh, geez, yeah. And when you said your mother fainted?" Joe stopped brushing the chafe out of his hair. "Except why'd you laugh so much, for goodness sakes? If you'd kept a straight face, even Tom wouldn't have guessed." "Aw, you laughed first. What do you mean?" "Me? I laughed first. I did not." "You did so. You laughed when he yelled at you the first time. You wiped your nose." They went off through the meadow, arguing as usual. Chapter 11. Tom. Billy pushed the frying pan toward Tom. "Okay, Fink, if it's not supposed to hurt you, you eat a piece of the worm." "Oh, no," said Alan. He and Joe were lying on their stomachs in the hayloft watching. "If he eats a piece, you lose, Billy. The bet was that you were going to eat 15 worms, not you and him together, just you." Billy didn't look up, his eyes fixed grimly on Tom. "All right, then I'll go dig another worm just for him. He's so big, telling me. Hurry up, hurry up. I can't wait around all day. Don't be a sissy." "All right now." "I didn't say sissy," said Tom. "I just said, if the first 4 worms didn't kill you, this one wouldn't either. I can't help it if my mother told me to be home by 2 o'clock today. She has to go shopping, so I've got to watch my little brother." "Yeah," said Billy. "Okay, so we'll just have time for you to eat a worm before you go. Come on, where's the shovel?" "Here," said Alan from the loft. "We brought an extra today." A worm dangled, squirming from his fingers. He dropped it over to Billy. "It's not cooked," said Tom. I'll do it, said Joe, scrambling down the ladder. He took the worm from Billy and ran out, then ran back and grabbed the frying pan. Tom sat down on an overturned bucket to wait. He didn't want to eat any worm. It wasn't his bet. He glanced at the door creaking in the wind. Maybe he should make a break for it and get home. Of course, he could see Billy's point. Billy didn't believe Joe's story, but still, he would find it reassuring if Tom ate one too. "Oh, he'll eat it," Billy said to Alan. "If he don't, he's chicken," said Alan. "After all, he's all talk." "Why don't I eat it?" thought Tom. "I mean, it's a yucky thing to do, but it wouldn't kill me." Oh, he scratched his neck, shifted in his seat on the pail. "I don't know," thought Tom. "Oh, I just won't, I guess." Oh, he gagged, imagining what it would be like to bite down on a soft, fat, boiled worm. He glanced at the door again. Billy kicked the door shut. "Leave it open," said Tom. "Why?" "Because I said so." "Yeah? Well, you don't own this barn. Neither do you. Your father does." Billy rubbed his nose, watching Tom, figuring, he's trying to pick a fight. So we'll get into an argument and he won't have to eat the worm. Okay. Billy opened the door and set a brick against it. Tom shifted his seat on the pail again. He couldn't stop thinking about what it would be like to bite down on a soft, fat, boiled worm. He scratched his ear. Who did Billy think he was, trying to order people around, telling them that they had to eat and all? Billy wasn't anybody's father. He wasn't the boss. Tom began to feel put upon, and indignant and stubborn. A screen door slammed. Joe coming back in with the worm. Tom licked his lips. He heard Joe running across the barnyard toward them. "Billy!" Alan shouted. Billy spun around just in time to catch a glimpse of Tom pelting out the door and the door banging shut. He flung to the window. Joe sprawled in the middle of the barnyard on his back. Tom was clambering over the wall into the meadow. The frying pan lay upside down beside the horse trough. Boys or girls, I'm thinking that Tom chickened out and did not eat the worm. Either that or he tried it and was so grossed out. But it sounds to me like he's escaping. I don't blame him. I wouldn't be eating a worm either. Chapter 12 is called The Fifth Worm. We'll see you tomorrow, boys and girls. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye for now.